What's up, nerds? It's been nearly 3 years since the last full episode of the Walten Files, and I have been patiently waiting for this promised land every day in between. The 4th episode of this horror web series has served up interesting new lore, so I will do my best to edit this video before the next episode comes out, and point out all the interesting tidbits it has to offer. This is not an explanation of what happens in the episode, but rather trying to further expand upon and point out connections presented. In fact, I don't think my ramblings will make much sense if you haven't watched episode 4. I also won't go over every single scene, just the ones I have something to point out. Not every spooky face has something interesting I can say about it. So grab your shovels and count down the days until my Bond glow-in-the-dark plush comes in the mail. Analyze this episode and what that means for the overall lore. The first thing I noticed was the balloons that we see at the very start falling down. There are balloons all over the place in the Bunny Farm version of the spring event, so it's fitting to see them here before a recreation of that event. The Bunny Smiles company shows off their logo, but this Bunny Smiles is a separate beast from the Bunny Smiles Inc. we usually see. In fact, this Bunny Smiles company graphic is from 1962, so this could be a tease as to what Bunny Smiles was like before Cybertech Fun bought them or merged with them. We see a quick series of images flash in front of us all at once. The first is a car, presumably Felix's, in what appears to be Wonderland. The next is Sophie in front of her father's missing poster, and lastly is a teaser of Bond. We see plenty of the first and last of these flashes in the story of this episode, but Sophie is nowhere to be found. When this letter from Charles Brooke appears on screen, there appears to be a Bible verse in the bottom left. We see P2712. Given the number of chapters, it would appear this has to come to us from either Psalms or Proverbs. For Psalms we have, "Deliver me not unto the will of mine enemies, for false witnesses are risen up against me, and such breathe out cruelty." Or in Proverbs, "A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself, but the simple pass on and are punished." Both are vague enough that I can't quite put my finger on which it could be, though. We get to listen to the Showstoppers perform for us much like they did in the first episode of the series. This time we have Bond singing All I See Is You, Boozoo singing everyone's favorite song from Insidious, Tiptoe Through the Tulips, Benny sings out Drift Away, and Shaw bleats out Sweet Music. I love the Showstopper albums, and I will listen to the second one unironically, but Bond has another song at the end, and I spent an hour trying to figure out what it was, so if you know, please tell me. It haunts my dreams. The endoskeleton shown has CBF 72 stamped on its head, possibly standing for Cyberfun 1972. It also appears to be Shaw given the look of the eyes. The Cybertelly is a mainline continuity version of the TVA only seen previously in Mysterious House Halloween Special. Also, I get severe Mr. DNA from Jurassic Park vibes from him. Susan's Workshops showcases a variety of animatronic pieces, but there are actually a pair of peepers looking back at you. Given the timeline, this has to be either Jack or the mysterious Bond. We get a letter from Norman Poultrick, the CEO of Cyberfun, voicing his concerns about Susan's sudden disappearance to Felix. However, there's another line of text hidden here for the last couple of frames that says Susan's been struggling, something something. I can't quite make it out, but regardless, showcases Susan's immediate suffering after Bond attacks her. Okay, there's gonna be a lot I pick apart from Susan and Charles' conversation, so let's get cracking. Susan and Charles' facial tracking test seen here is the same as how we see Bond perceive Brian Stell's death in the first episode. They also mention that the facial recognition has a hard time perceiving Sophie, which would be why Bond thought that Brian was Sophie when he chased after and killed him. The duo also mentioned Chris, a character who has only appeared as a sprite in the second episode so far, but has been mentioned by Brian and shown on the Bunny Farm arcade cabinet. Given these teases, it seems pretty likely we'll see either Norman or Chris in the coming episodes. Charles apparently has a daughter named Lily, who we had previously seen referenced in Boozoo's minigame in Bunny Farm. Charles and Susan both know that Felix's drunk driving killed Ed and Molly, which throws a lot of cause and effect on its head in the series. If Felix came clean, it wouldn't make sense for him to go out and seek revenge, given that he seems pretty remorseful afterwards. The two also don't believe that they don't know the whole story about the incident, despite Felix seemingly coming clean, so this is probably a cue to the audience that we don't know as much as we think we do about the incident. When Boozoo scans Ed and Molly's ghost faces, there sort of seems to be a third face there, which could tie into the third grave we saw, or could just be part of the visual distortion. There's also a charming face that flashes in red here, a color that is usually associated with Ed and Molly, though this doesn't appear to be either of them. The first title over 6/30/1974 has a double meaning, as it's the first birthday party that takes place at the restaurant, and Banny is the first person shoved into a soup by Bond. When the Bond spirit moves across the screen, it moves into Bond, noticeably different than Ed and Molly, who have to move with the doll. After Felix crashes the car, we see he has dug 3 graves, unlike the 2 shown in Bunny Farm. This could either mean Felix was planning on putting himself in that hole, as we see him almost jump shortly after, or that the third red face from earlier has something to do with it. Felix tells Rosemary and Jack what happened, meaning he wouldn't have anything to gain from killing any of them afterwards, but that still leaves the question as to how Felix is able to take over the company and why he cuts Jack out of the narrative. While Rocket watches Bond kill Susan, its eyes flash brown and green, alluding to two spirits inhabiting the old doll. Although we haven't actually seen the eye colors of Ed and Molly, so it's unclear as to which eye belongs to who. Once we head into Limbo, Bond describes himself as having been murdered, implying that he is both human and possibly looking for revenge. And we know for a fact that he is a ghost given his plushie's description. Bond's words are also choppy and letters will separate from the rest of the word, a trait that is not shared by the rest of the characters' dialogues in Wonderland. Bond describes this area of Limbo as Wonderland, a reference of course to Lewis Carroll's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Interestingly enough, on the Brighton Ghost website, we can see that there is an unclickable link to an Alice in Wonderland page. In addition, there have been several references to poker, including on the website and the Spectre mini episode. These two concepts could tie together via their playing card themes, or simply be referencing Cyberfun's original business in making machines for casinos. There's also a character in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland known as the March Hare, a crazy rabbit. Susan in the shell of Banny sees who appears to be the Shadow Man walk past her. Notable also is how the White Bond and Black Shadow Man are inverses of each other's colors. Bond in Wonderland is standing on the opposite end of the fence at the end, implying that, much like the tracing video from earlier, he has more power to roam around than any of the other spirits. Ed and Molly's spirits hold hands as they walk away into the fog of Wonderland, paralleling the start of the video when they were at the dance. Anthony in the description of the video states he will post the next 2 videos at the end of the month, so we'll have a lot less time to wait until the next installment in the series if all goes well. I have a lot of questions after this episode that I can only hope are answered in the next 2 uploads, namely why the CTC consoles are brought up so often in this episode, what really happened when Felix crashed, the identity of the mysterious Bond, and why Bond wants Sophie dead and none of the animatronics can scan her face well. I have a feeling we'll learn a bit more about Cyberfun and Bunny Smiles and their business relationship pretty soon. Hopefully we can all tune into Faces of Grief pretty soon and discover some of the secrets ourselves when we have more pieces of the puzzle. Well, that's all folks. Don't let the animatronic rabbits catch you, and thanks for tuning in to Double Issues.